Ya, ya, ajá, sí, sí, ya, ya no tanto, ya estuvo, ya, ya estuvo, ya. Ujú. Ok, ok, ya me quité, ya no estoy ahí. Ahí ya no, güey, yo ya vi que rato no estaba ahí, güey. Igual que tú. Y no, de la mente, que ya. Entonces ahí lo dejo ya, ¿no? Ya está todo, ¿no? Ok, ok, ok. Ahora pues, te dejo pues. Ahora pues sale. Ok, vamos a darle.
شما اسمتون چی اسم کوچیکتون؟ چی؟ اسم کوچیکتون؟ من روزی. روزی. روزی به خانم. کوهنن. ایشالا زبونشون ماقل به ماقل ما هم باشیم. ایشالا. کوهن نیمن. هم از پدری هم از مادری. صدوق سرتون بشه با سلامتی. با اجازه. خیلی ممنون. شما پس حق جد دارید. حق جد دارید. هم جد پدری هم جد مادری. آره. خدا بیامرزش. میشه باشی در نیدم. فامیلی کسی الان تو ایران دارید تهران؟ آره. هم برادرمه هم خواهرمه. سلامت باش. تو شیراز یا تهران؟ نه شیراز. ما شیرازی. میدونم شیرازی آره. ما فامیلیش همسایه‌مون که فرنگیز خانم ما اونا فامیلیشون چیه؟ فرنگیز کیه؟ همون همسایه‌مون شیرازی فامیلم که چیز خانمش فرنگی اسمش فرنگیسه. شوهرشم ناصر نه؟ شوهرشم ناصر. فامیلیش بود فامیلیش نمیدونم. طلعت بوده که البته فرنگیست. تو شیرازه؟ نه اینجا همسایه اینجا همین در خونهمون. خب شیرازی بوده؟ شیرازی هم آره. چه آدمای خوب. سه تا دخترش یکیشون سه تاشون الان نیویورک و واشنگتن و میبرن یک پسرشون اینجاست. پسرم زنش کاشی گرفت 3-4 سال 5 سال پیش. یه پسری داره سه تا دختر. آره آره میشناسیم. ببینید از تو ایران که آدم باشه میگن بریم پیش بچه ها. آره خوب زنده باشن خوب هر کی جای چیزی خودش ایشکی با ایشکی نیست ایشکی. اینجا سه دو ماموراست. آره اسمشه که بریم پیش بچه ها. بله زنده باشه. آدم دلش قرار هم دیگه باشه. چاره چی؟ هر کسی مشغول کار و هر کسی برای دو زندگی رو بچرخونه. کارش نداشته باش. پیچه هم در میاد و میفته. ول کن. روش بر ندون. یک سال 10 تا 20 سالن داره هر طبقه.
این موقتیه چیزی
نه چی موقتی؟ اینم یه جای داره
شما برید فکر کنید برید تو اون کنیسه بزرگ اونجا
آره.
چه خبر
بله
دیدی؟
همینجا طبقه نگاه
آره دیدی؟
بله همینه اصلا تمام پول سالن الان سالن اومدی داره مهمونی امشب دارن تجربی
No, over where? Over there.
همینجور
What's the name? People food.
مهمونی های شروع باشه میگیرن کنفرانس دارن
اونجا که برمسما میگن بوده وای بیاید تو سالون او بغلی کنید چقدر چی گذاشت خیلی هم پول دارد
ببینید زمینه بزرگ حیاته رو این زمینه اولا نبود که این زمینه این بزرگیه دونیشن کرد مثلا اینجا همه مثل سیپستانی ها اونداران میدیدن
You took the toll.
Yeah, what they do is they do a little learning later.
این مال خونه هاست گرفت
Okay. So which one you took?
Consider.
Those
خیلی هم
two,
پول
the
دارد
same
Still
thing?
Use this one.
دوزا زیادن آقا
You're gonna have to use that one too. They list both pages. They're both good. They're both good. The one that is for Shabbos, you know.
It's Rabbi Lickfeld is coming.
Oh, okay, good.
کاسمی
روشبه داده و رفت
روشه چه رئیس جمهور
باید دمی کم دارم ببینیم
Hi.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good, and you?
This is Leah Weissman, the one I was
Hi,
telling you
Leah.
about.
Now I can see. Let me
Okay,
move
come here,
so you
come
can
here.
all sit here.
No, we're gonna go over here, it's fine.
Yeah?
We can go over here. Maybe to get used to this. There's too many chairs in this room. That one's gone. And then we can go over a little bit. Oh. Okay. I have one. But Leah needs. I don't know, I gotta ask what's his name if I can.
Now,
I
rather
don't
than
know how to
there.
do it for my own book anyway.
So how are you doing?
Or I have it with me.
This is somebody here.
Notice
Okay, thank you.
we're gonna be reading for several weeks hence.
چه بدشون
آره.
شما برای خودش
این همین انقدر حرفا برای پلیسی هم کار نکنه.
Valentano was in Seattle and San Francisco. There were two fundraisers working on it for a couple months. It went really well.
Oh, good. I'm gonna get
Like it stops at the house.
maybe.
But I covered it for Shopper Doug. Yeah. Yeah.
You have any idea?
I can make it tomorrow. I got something in the evening and something in the morning. Okay. The eighth one. Say again. Just take.
Hi, Marshall.
Hi, Shabbat Shalom. How are you?
Hi,
How you
I
doing?
see you again. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Everybody's.
Pavan Kito.
Oh.
It's not even Tuesday.
Can you close the
mitzvah there.
Oh, wow.
Wonderful weekend.
Oh, so you had the whole family together?
Yep. 200 people.
200 people?
Very large family. No,
Kidding me?
not a lot.
You have three brothers?
No, they two, my two daughters. And so each of the kids had their own friends.
You know what time it is actually called?
Yeah,
Boy,
7 to.
boy, I'm gonna call you on
It says it on the printout on the front of your building too.
I trust it then.
Oh, you look happy.
I didn't hear it, that's how, that's when you go by, when you go by like that, you zip by the time I hear it, you're already gone.
Services was great. The party for a week.
We get a seat
They
door.
did everything from blankets.
I like using a microscopic so.
Let me get a weekday seat door.
Thing with his name on it, a mug with his name on it, and they really.
Yes, you were upside down, but okay.
That takes priority.
Yeah. I know you were.
The kid is so good.
No problem.
He's gonna be a sign tomorrow, he's already precocious. He went and got fish. You know, fish have food every day. Then they alive like 4 months later.
Look like you're ready for your time. You ruined his photograph.
We went to this like.
I don't know, but I didn't tell him, but he probably saw the photos. Where was it?
Shabbat shalom. Mincha begins on page 214. It's just for the Zoom.
You don't wanna like,
So it's just otherwise they won't hear it on Zoom because that
there's nobody on Zoom.
yeah, title is.
Hi Zoom. Alright, we good?
Yeah. Ashrei, page 214.
Ashrei Ashrei V'Techa, Od Hallelu Chasela, Ashrei Ham Shachar Chalo, Ashrei Ham Shadonai Eloha, Ashrei Tila Adonai Bar Pi, Varekal Ki Basar Shem Kacho Leolam Vaev, Anachnu Nevarech Yam, Yatavi Adolam Hallelujah. Uvalatzion, Goel, Shved Pesach, Yaakov Naum Adonai. Takadosh Yoshev Tilat Yisrael, B'karaz Al Zebi Amar, Kadosh Kadosh Kadosh, Adonai Tzvul B'kol Tivado. V'tisayini Ruach V'shma Acharei Kol Ra'ash Gadol, Baruch Kavod, Adonai Mimkomo. Adonai Yimloch Le'olam Va'ed. Yivdekubakayo Deo Shemecha, Kilo Azata Dorshecha Adonai, Adonai Chafetz La'aman, Tzidko Yadir V'Torah B'Yadir. Yikadav Yikadav Shemei Rabbah, Almadi Baruch Yirotev Yom Lich Malchutei V'Chayechon V'Yomechon V'Chayedechol Beit Yisrael V'Galav Izman Kariv V'Imru Amen. V'Hei Shemei Rabbah Mevarach Le'olam Almaya Yitbarach V'Yishtabach V'Yitbar V'Yitvarma V'Yitnaseh V'Yitadar V'Yitalev V'Yachol Shemei Dechudsha B'Richu Le'ela Min Kol Birchata V'Shirata Tush Birchata V'Nechmata Da'Miram B'Alma V'Imru Amen. V'ani Tefilati L'ch Adonai Eid Ratzon Elohim V'Rachastecha Aneni B'Emet Yishecha V'hi Ben Soa Haron V'Yomer Moshe Kum Adonai V'Yafito 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 Amasim V'Tetes V'Ra Yisrael Kedushato. Gadlu Adonai Iti Unarama Mashimo Yakta.
Joe, you want to be Gabbai Shani? What's that? Yeah, that's, we need one more up here.
Okay, we'll get it here. There we go.
Does anyone that I do not know of have a your site this week or need an aliyah? No?
I said the your side.
You have your site? Okay. ותגלה בטרם מלכותנו למזמן קרוב, יכון פליטתנו ופליטתנו בבית לכן לחזרנו לטוב ולמר אמן. הכל הבו גולה, הנו חבו לתורה, תעמוד ורד בת.
בת ישראל. בת ישראל ושרה.
בת ישראל ושרה לי הראשונה בראש, שנתן תורה למויז וקדושתו, ואתם מרוויחים לבכם, חיים כולכם היום. פרשת בהעלותך can be found in the Chumash on page 816, if you're following from home from a different Chumash or Tanakh, the 8th chapter of the book of Numbers.
It's not gonna work, please. Good.
יש לך?
יש לי בראש גם. בסדר, מי ברכו?
יברכו לכם. תשימי נשיקה.
כן, כן, כן. ברכו את אדוני המבורך. ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים, ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. V'deber Adonai el Moshe limor. Daber el Haron v'armata elav b'chalatecha hanerod el mol p'nei hamanara ya'iru shivat hanerod. Liaskena Haron el mol p'nei hamanara ha'ela nerotecha kasher tiva Adonai et Moshe. וזה מעשה המנורה מקשה זהב עד ירחה עד בכר מקשה כי כמראה אשר הראה אדוני את משה כן עשה את המנורה.
ברוך אתה אדוני. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת בחיי עולם נתן בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן. יעמוד יהושע בן יוסף ויהודי לעלייה השנייה.
Top of 817, verse 5.
יהודי.
Baruch Adonai, Baruch Baruch Adonai, Baruch Le'olam Va'ed, Baruch Atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Asher baruch rabanu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et ha'torah, Baruch Atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen.
Amen. V'deber Adonai el Moshe lemor. Kach et halavim mitop in Yisrael bitartotam. V'kol ta'aseh lachem l'tacharam chazeh lachem nechatad. Ve'heviru ta'ar kol basaram v'kizu b'dechem v'vicharum. V'lachu par ben bakar u'min chato sol bilol b'shomen ufar sheni ben bakar tikach l'chatad. V'hikrata et halavim lifnei ochem away v'hitata et kol adat ben Yisrael Yad ben Yisrael.
Baruch Atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Asher natan lanu Torah temet, v'chei olam natan b'tocheinu, Baruch Atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Meir ben Eliezer live v'chana l'yash lishit.
Middle of 817, verse 10.
Baruch hu et Adonai
Baruch
hamavorach.
Baruch
Adonai hamavorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech olam. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch ata Adonai noten ha'torah.
V'yirav amen, yirichad ed havim, lifnei Adonai, umix, v'samschu b'nei Yisrael, et yedechem halim, v'heniv, acharon halim, t'nufal lifnei Adonai, me'et b'nei Yisrael, v'hayu la'avad avodat Adonai, v'halvim, yismachu et yedechem al rosh haparim, v'yaseh, et echad atat, v'et echad olal Adonai, lakaper halvim, v'yimadata et halvim, lifnei acharon, lifnei banav, hinavta otam, t'nufal Adonai, v'hivdata et halvim, mitot b'et Yisrael, v'hayu v'hayu halvim.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Yamdil Magbi, Bahagol, please rise, the Torah is lifted. Good cheer for you there, Levnei b'nei Yisrael, pi Adonai b'yad Moshe. Eitz Chaim hi l'machazikim b'avetomchei ha'meushar. Eitz Chaim hi l'machazikim b'avetomchei ha'meushar. Derachei darchei noam, v'chol netivotei shalom. Derachei darchei noam, v'chol netivotei shalom. Anai nanai anai nanai anai nanai ababa yai anai nanai anai. Vered Lavo. We'll do some El Malei Rachamim prayers for your sites. רוצה שאני אגיד או שאת תגידי? זה תלוי בך. אני יכול או את יכולה? את?
אני אנסה.
אוקיי. Why don't you hold it for? הוא יחזיק לך את התורה.
אני יכולה להחזיק. לא, גם אתה יכול להחזיק.
אוקיי.
לא לשיר, אבל אני יכולה לדבר.
אין בעיה, אין בעיה.
בסדר?
זה זכר נקבה.
אבא.
אוקיי.
אוקיי. אל מלא רחמים, שוכן במרומים. המצא מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה. במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים. את נשמת ישראל בן יעקב, שהלך לעולמו. בגן עדן תהא מנוחתו. אנא בעל הרחמים, הסתירהו בסתר כנפיך לעולמים. וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו, אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר אמן.
Do you want to share a memory of your father, Vered?
Sure. My father, Israel, passed away about 30 years ago today. He was a Holocaust survivor, had a very difficult life story. And I'd like to share with you one very little story about him, though I can stay here the whole evening and share some memories. And here is one. So when he passed away, I have only one sister. He lived in Israel. And the custom is to bring a bus to the house of the descent and take all the people who want to pay their respect to come to his house and board the bus and go to the cemetery. We have a very small family in Israel, almost none, but many friends. And on the day of the funeral, I was looking on the second floor, the balcony, and I saw a mob of people. I just can't imagine who were those people. And so I went downstairs and I talked to the first woman there and I say, excuse me, I am the daughter of Israel, Zal. What bring you here? Are you for the funeral? And she said, your father, I live in Beersheba, and your father bought for me a wedding dress about 15 years ago. And I didn't know who he was, but later I found out that it's from him. So I had to pay a last respect for him. And I moved to the other man, an elderly man who stood there. And I said the same, what brought you here? Are you for the funeral? And he said, yes, years ago, do you see this gentleman there? He's my son. But years ago, we had nothing. We were new immigrants from Morocco. And your father bought my son a talit and tefillin for his bar mitzvah. And at the end, he also added a suit. And we had a wonderful bar mitzvah because of your father. So later, I found out because the mayor of Herzliya was attending this funeral. And I said, Ma kol ha'anashim ha'ele? Who are those people? And he said, your father was the head of Gamach, Gmilut Chasadim, in the greater area of Israel for years. And those people are here to pay respect for him, like I do now. And so I just want to say that we lived a very middle class people. We were middle class, my father, my mom, and my sister. And he even didn't have a car. He never traveled anywhere outside of Israel beside the forest of Romania where he was hiding. And Dov went to bring him to Los Angeles once. And here, with all the money that he gave to those people, so Yehi Zichro Baruch.
Eric?
Can we do it? Who's it for? My grandmother, her name is Crendel Herschel.
Male rachamim shochein b'amramim המציא מלוכה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים את נשמת קרנדל בת הרשל שלחה לעולמה בגן עדן תהא מנוחתה הנאה בעל הרחמים אז תראה בסתר כנפיך לעולמים וצרור בצרכים את נשמתה אדוני הוא נחלתה ותנוח בשלום על משכבה ונאמר amen. Is there a memory of your grandmother you want to share?
Not so much memory, just that I like that she was a twin and talked to her twin sister nearly every day of her life until they both died in their early 90s. And the fact that I subsequently, or along the way, married a twin, apparently I'm, in some way participating in continuing that sisterly tradition.
May her memory be a blessing to you. Anyone else who has your site this week, either present or on Zoom?
Okay, so we'll continue with the service to return the Sefer Torah to the Ark. In the Lev Shalem, it's on page 221. In the Sim Shalom, it is 500 and... one second. 570, and the Slim Shalom, do you have it, Joey? 232, thank you. Okay.
You want to call it Corin?
And the
too? It's,
Koran, and then the,
278.
yes.
Hallelujah, Shem Adonai, Ki Nishgal Shemo Levado.
Allah Vashamayim, Aaron Carol, the Avado. Ma'aseh Melech HaGavod, Zelav Nucho Yomar, Shuva Rohem Levanachanu, Koinach HaYibashu Tzedek, Chassid Lach Yiranim, Bavur Levim Lecha, Veshivanim Veshivanim, Yilach HaTorah, Chassid Lach Torah,
Ashivenu Adonai Elecha, V'nashuva Kadesh Yaminu Tekeden.
Chatzi Kaddish into the quiet Amidah.
Yikadav Yikadash, Shemei Rabbah, Ba'amad Yivrach Yerutev, Yamlich Malchutev, V'chayechon, V'yamechon, V'chayedechol Beit Yisrael, B'kalav V'zman Kariv, V'imru, Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah Mevarach, L'olam Omei Almaya, Yiparak V'yishabach, V'yipar V'yitramah V'yinaseh, V'yitardar V'yitalev, V'yichalal Shemei Dekucha B'richu, Le'elah Min Chol Berchata V'shirata, Tush Berchata V'nechamata, Da'amiram Ba'amah V'imru, Amen.
The petition begins on page 223.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzhak Elohei Yaakov Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor V'Hanara El Elyon Gamel Chasadim Tovim V'Konei Hakol V'Zocher Chasei Avot U'Mevi Goel L'Bnei B'neihem L'man Shemo V'Yahava Melech Hoser Moshe Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Atah Yibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayim Etim Atah Rav Lehoshiach, Marid Hatal, Mecharel Chaim Bechesed, Mechayim Etim Rechabim Rabim, Somef Noflim Berofei Cholim Umatir Asurim, Ukayem Unatol Shnei Afar, Michamo Chabal Gevorot Umidom Melach, Melech Meimitum Chayim Atzmir Kishua, Neman Atah Lechayot Metim, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mechayeh HaMetim. Negadesh Shimkab Olam Kashem Kamakashim Hotel Bashmim Marub Kakatolian Devea Kabakar Alzavi Amar Kadosh 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 and the nice full across Kavodol Yomatambo Yomeru Rukabot and Anam Komo Debre Kachakaka Tuble More Yim Lokam and Alelam, Alahas and Little Hallelujah, Ledor Vador, Nagi Gadlecho, Neslak Neslachim, Kudushakta, Nakdish, Bishiv Kacha, Eloheinu, Mepinu Lo Yamushalam Vaed, Ki El Malakadova Kadoshata, Baruch Ata Adonai, Ael Hakadosh. Ata Echad, Bishimcha Echad, Umika Amcha, Yisrael Goy Echad Baaretz, Tefere Gedula, Beatera Yeshua, Yomenucha, Ukidusha La'amcha Natata, Abraham, Yagel, Yitzhak, Yeranim, Yaakov, Vanav, Yanu Chuvo, Menucha Ahava, Unadavar, Menucha Emet, Be'emuna, Menucha Shalom, Shalvat, Vahashkit Vaveta, Menucha Shalima, Shataro Tseba, Yakiru Vanecha, Yeduki, Meitcha, Himenuchatam, Ba'ab Menuchatam, Kadishu et Shemecha, Eloheinu Eloheinu, Ritzebenu Chatenu, Kachenu, B'mitzvotecha, Betin Chalchenu B'toratecha, Sabenu Metuvecha, Besamchenu B'yeshuatecha, B'taher Lebenu, B'yalkvicha B'yamet, B'hantilenu Eloheinu, B'yavav Ratzon Shabbatot Kadshecha, B'yanuchu B'am Yisrael, Kadshe Shemecha, Baruch Ata Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat, Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu, B'yamcha Yisrael Tfilatam, B'hashev Avodat L'bir Beitecha, B'yishal Yisrael Tfilatam, B'havat Tikvelt Ratzon Util Ratzon, Tamid Avodat Yisrael Amecha, Betecha Zena Einenu, B'shuvcha L'tzion B'rachamim, Baruch Ata Adonai, Amachazim Shekinato L'tzion, Modim Anachnu Lar, Shata Bonel V'nevalim L'Lai, Tzorchim Ekimshim Tokilo Katuducher, Melam Kavinu Lach, Veakulam Yitbarak, Yitramam Shimcha Malkenu Tamil Leolam Vaed, Verkol Hachayim Yudu Hasela, Hallelu et Shimcha, Be'emet Ha'el Yeshuatin Ve'ezra Sela, Baruch Ata Adonai, Atov Shimcha Ochad Na'el Lehodod, Shalom Rav Al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam Ki Atahu, Melech Adon Lechol HaShalom, B'tov Be'enecha, Levreket Amcha Yisrael, B'chol Eit Uv'chol Sha'ah B'Slomecha, Baruch Ata Adonai, Amreket Amo Yisrael B'Shalom. Tzidchacha tzedek le'olam tioratcha emet, Tzidchacha Elohim ad marom asher asita gedolot Elohim michamocha, Tzidchacha kaharare el mishpatecha tahom rabba adam v'hema toshia Adonai. Yikadav Yikadav Shemei Rabbah Amadi Rachirute V'Yamlich Machute V'Chayechon V'Yamechon V'Chaydecho Be'Yisrael V'Galav Izman Kari V'Imru Amen. Yehe Shemei Rabbah Mevarach Olam Yomaya Yiparach Yishtabach Yitpar V'Yitramah V'Yitnaseh V'Yitadar V'Yitaleh V'Yitol Shmei Dechudsha B'Richu Le'ela Michol B'Prata V'Shirata Tushbachata V'Nechmata Da'miram B'Yalma V'Imru Amen. Titkabel Tzoloson Uva'uson Tichol Yisrael Kadam Uvuson Di B'Shmayim V'Yimru Amen. Yehe Shalom Rabba Min Shemayim V'Chaim Alin V'Echol Yisrael V'Yimru Amen. O say Shalom B'Mermav Huya say Shalom Alin V'Echol Yisrael V'Yimru Amen. Alinu L'Shabeh Achladon Akol Ategul El Yotzer Breshit. V'ne'amar b'chaya Adonai l'melech kol ha'aretz v'yom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shmo echad. Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah ba'alma divrach yorutei v'yamlich malchutei Chayechon, Yomechon, Chaye, the Kol Beit Israel, Baragalav, Izman, Kari, Vimru, Amen. Yehi Shemei Rabba, Mevarach, Olam, Almei, Almaya. Yiparak, Yishamlach, Yitparar, Yitlamam, Yitnaseh, Yitadar, Yitalef, Yithalal, Shmei, Yichushah, B'Yehu, Ve'elam, Yinchol, B'Chata, B'Shirata, Tush B'Chata, V'Nechemata, V'Niram, B'Yalma, V'Yimru, Amen. Yehi Shalama, Rabba, Min Shamaya, V'Chaim, Alinu, V'Al Yisrael, V'Yimru, Amen. Aseh Shalom, Aseh Shalom.
Amen. Shakoach to Eric for davening, to Barry for laning. Those who are here in person, come get Sudash Lishit. Those on Zoom, give us 7 or 8 minutes to have people get some food. You should also get some food because you should eat something. Your grandmother would be happy if you ate something. And then we'll come together for the learning. Those on Zoom, the text sheet went out in a separate email yesterday, just before Shabbat. And hello, Rabbi Judy. And don't put your chumash back, whether you're in person or on Zoom. You're going to need a chumash for the teaching, so keep it with you.
forks. Here's some forks, some spoons.
Oh, okay. That looks odd.
Well, this is part of what it's very hard manipulation. I understand. Oh.
Hey Gary, Shabbat Shalom. Hi Tybal.
Good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos,
You don't
Tybal.
need anything else.
Still a bit.
What's that?
It's still a bit of Shabbos.
Right, but not where you are.
No, not where I am, but I'm on LA time when I'm with you.
That's true. Okay, remember to have a chumash in front of you, everybody, okay?
Oh. I'm glad I didn't put it away.
I got it.
The table with all the Torah Club kids.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry Yaakov couldn't be there.
I'm sure he's not though, because he's having the adventure of a lifetime. But
Mekaveh Shaked.
In case I don't have enough, start by sharing. Baron.
Sure.
wait a minute, it's only one page.
Why do they tell me?
Because I didn't put the Torah verses on the page.
Oh, I see. I was like, I thought I already.
Oh, does that mean we don't have to worry about what to do with them afterwards?
Correct. There's no shame on that.
There's a sustainability fund. We recycle everything. We use all the parts of the buffalo.
We actually have enough.
Buffalo anywhere in here?
Okay, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I want to explore with you some verses in the Torah that don't get explored that often. And you might say to me, I explore this all the time, Rabbi. What are you talking about? But I'm gonna guess that's not the case. Irv, do you have a sheet? You got a paper?
Yeah,
Okay.
he's got one.
So open up your Eitz Chaim, or if you're at home from a different Chumash, to Bamidbar chapter 9. In Parshat Balotcha, and my apologies that there's a typo on this sheet. The ayin is missing from Beha'alotecha, and I'm aware of it. Okay, so here we are in the desert, and Parshat Sefer Bamidbar is a bit of journeying, some narrative, and some reinforcement of rules. Not a whole lot of new rules. Not none, but not a whole lot of new rules. And look what happens in the opening lines of chapter 9 of Bamidbar, page 819. Vaydeber Adonai al Moshe, God said to Moses, Bamidbar Sinai b'shana hasheni l'tzetam me'eretz Mitzrayim, in the wilderness of Sinai, in the second year since they left Egypt, b'chodesh harishon lemor, on the first day of the month, on the first month. And what's the first month biblically? Nisan, okay? So in terms of when the odometer of the years turn over, that's Tishri, but the Bible has never heard of that as the beginning of or at least the Torah has never heard of that as the beginning of a year. We understand the biblical calendar to have reset itself. Nisan corresponding to the birth of our people, so it's the birth of the new year. But Arba Asar Yom, so the Torah says that when the 14th day of this month comes, B'chodesh hazeh, this month, Bein ha'arbaim, at dusk, tasu oto b'moado. You should, sorry, I skipped a verse. Vayasu b'nei Yisrael ta pesach b'moado. At the Pasach moado. So now this is the second year, right? You've been out a year, and you should do the Pesach in its appointed time. What does it mean in the Torah to do the Pesach? Sacrifice, right? It doesn't mean a seder, right? It means to fulfill the offering of the Korban Pesach. One of only two mitzvot in the Torah that are mitzvot aseh, meaning things that you must do, versus as opposed to things that you must not do, for which the punishment of not doing it is what we call karet, being cut off from the Jewish people. The other one, anyone know? Brit Milah, right? Those are the only two thou shalt, that if you don't do it, you get cut off from the line of the Jewish people. Every other karet mitzvah is things that you shouldn't do, but you do anyway. And then the Torah says in verse 3, on the 14th day on that month, at dusk you shall do it, at its appointed time. All of its laws and all of its statutes, you should do it. Verse 4, next page. So Moses instructs the Israelites to do exactly that. And they did it. Barishon, in the first month, on the 14th day, at dusk, the Midbar Sinai, in the middle of the desert, right? It's not just that it was done once when they left, comes around again, time to do it. Everything that God had commanded them to do, they did. Could have ended there, right? So nice. It's a year later, they're in the desert, they remember the Exodus, God told them to do the Pesach, now it gets established as a forever thing. And then verse 6 comes along. There were, it's an interesting verb, because it really should be vayihiyu anashim,
Right.
which is plural. So it's it's not what we're looking at right now, but commentators are curious about the fact that it's a singular verb, but a plural subject. It might be vayhi, and it came to pass that anashim asher hayu tmeim lenefesh adam, that men who had been tmeim, again the best English word to render tmeim is impure, but it's a terrible word. It doesn't mean impure here. It means they were in a state of ritual toxicity or lack of health. Lenefesh adam, because of a nefesh of a man. What does that mean? Death, right? Nefesh, we talk about nefesh kind of in modern Jewish speak, it refers to soul. In the Torah, nefesh actually meant body. So they had become tameh as a result of caring for someone who is dead. And because of that state, right, in order to participate in Korban Pesach, you had to be tahor, not tameh. That's one of the reasons why washing our hands is a very significant ritual in Seder, because you're not allowed to, even though our Seder is only a remnant of what it once was when the sacrifice was eaten, there's a seriousness to making sure that we are tahor when we're participating in this kind of quasi ritual. And they couldn't do the Pesach offering bayom hahu on that day. They came up in front of Moses, lifnei Haron bayom hahu, and in front of Aaron that day. Bayomru, they said, who said it? Hanashim haima, those men. Elav, they spoke to him. Anachnu tmeim lenefesh adam. We are halachically impure because of contact with a human corpse. Lama nigara, why should we lose out? Gimel Reish Ayin means to be less, to be diminished. Why should we have a diminished religious experience? This is our first time since Exodus night that we have an opportunity to commemorate Exodus night. It's been a year ago. Why? Just because we happened to we didn't ask to be coming into contact with someone who's dead. Why should we miss out on being able to fulfill this ritual? Levilti hakriv et korban night. Why should we not be able to offer the sacrifice? We would like to. It's not like we're shirking our responsibilities. B'moado, and at its appropriate time. B'toch b'nei Israel, amongst the people of Israel. Vayomer Elohem Moshe, Moses said to them, Imdu ve'eshma'a, like step away, right? Maybe ve'eshma'a, and I will listen in closely. Ma yitzaveh Adonai lachem, what God is going to instruct, right? As if Moses is saying, I know the answer. Good question. Let me go consult with the one who does know the answer, the Kadosh Baruch Hu, and you'll get your answer. And then it gets resolved. God said to Moses, saying, speak to the people of Israel, saying, Ish kiyeh tameh lenefesh. If you have a person who was, this was the category that was raised in the verse, who was tameh lenefesh, who has become ritually tameh because of contact with a corpse, and God adds in another category, so all of a sudden there was a petition for a leniency in the law, and God actually responds seemingly more lenient than even was requested. They said the reason why we couldn't do Pesach is because we were in contact with a corpse. God says, well, if that happened, or you happen to be away for the weekend. Lachem, remember the word lachem, because the word lachem does not really work well in the verse. It means to you, but it'd be hard to figure out what the word to you means in the setting. So if any person who was impure because of contact with a corpse, or was on a faraway road to you, weird phrase, ola dorotechem, or for generations, lachem, maybe you can understand it to mean like whether it's now or in the future, possible. Va'asa pesach l'Adonai, that person should still be able to offer a Pesach offering. B'chodesh hasheni ba'arba'asar yom. The second month. What's the month after Nisan? Iyar. So wait another month. On what day? The same day you would have done it on the first month. By the way, we observe Pesach on the 15th of Nisan, but the Korban was done as the sun was going down on the 14th, right? So that's why they keep referring to the 14th. Bein harbayim, at dawn. Yasu oto, they should do it. Al matzot umorim yochluhu. You should recognize that phrase from the from the Korech part of the Haggadah, right? That they ate it on matzah and with bitter herbs.
It's also even before the Haggadah. It's also in the Torah itself, because everyone thinks matzah was created when they were leaving in a hurry, but they were eating matzah with the Korban Pesach and with maror.
Correct.
Yeah.
The Torah continues, Lo yashiru mimeno ad boker, don't leave any over until the morning. Ve'etzem lo yishbruvo, don't break any bones. Kechol chuchat pesach yasu oto. Okay? Basically do it as you would have done it the first time around. So basically, in Parshat Balodcha, some people complain. They complained that they were not able to participate in a key ritual that commemorated their exodus from Egypt. They ask for a do-over. God gives a do-over, and God gives a do-over more leniently than they requested. There, you can ask endless questions of this, but there are classically two questions that are asked on this ritual, known as Pesach Sheni, the second Pesach, right? One is, why did God accede to their request? Why did God build into halacha and Jewish practice the notion of, yeah, you missed out, do it again. You miss Hanukkah, do it the next week. And then the concomitant question is, why only for this, right? Why was it offered, and why was it only offered here? Because, as far as all of us know, there is no other ritual. You can't do Purim 2 days late. If you miss Hanukkah, you were traveling, you don't have a Chanukiah, even though Hanukkah, some people think, is a replacement for a Sukkot that was done late when the Israelites finally got back, and the Jews got back to the temple after it was desecrated and they couldn't have done Sukkot on time. There's no other ritual or no other mitzvah that is that we know of that has a certain time where you're supposed to do it, that if you miss it, even for a legitimate reason, you're able to do it another time. So why does God say yes? And why does God say yes only to this? So let's hear a couple of answers on the table. Pass the mic as much as possible, because I do want the people on Zoom to be able to hear. Barry, I know it'll be a little clunky to pass it around, but it's worth it.
Well, it's been said already. It's one of two commands. If you don't do it, it's karet.
So I see. So since the stakes are so high for doing it, we're going to give you a chance to do it, and we're going to give you credit for having done it in its own time, even though you didn't do it in its own time.
It's God's command. I mean, it's not fair.
Yeah, it's an interesting comment, because while you can't do a bris early, you can do it late, right? So one shouldn't do it late, but if you didn't do the bris on the 8th day, you should still do it on the 9th. And if you didn't do it on the 9th, you should still do it on the 10th, right? It's not that it's worked into the Torah that, if one misses a bris, one does it then a week later, but you can still get quote unquote credit for doing a brit milah even if you do it at the right time. Alan?
No, I'm just holding the mic.
Other questions or other possible answers? Yes, Judy.
Thank you, Rabbi. It's the first time reading this, that it occurs to me that this example is incredibly significant because it becomes, to me, almost a foundational text for when, if for whatever reason, a person can't do it, but they are yearning to do the mitzvah. And the answer is do it, but the second month, the 14th day. And the answer then implies do it, but with a great sense of kavanah and individual responsibility, that to the best way that you are able to do it the right way.
Great. So what Judy says is going to connect to the last source we'll look at eventually, that maybe what this is connected to, what's significant here is not only that it's Pesach, but that they were yearning, they were begging, they were pleading. They wanted to not miss out on this opportunity of connecting with God. And the answer is, we're going to respond to that yearning, but you can't just do it willy-nilly. You have to do it on a particular day, at a particular time. It's not that you can do it whenever you want, and you have to do it to all the specifications. Great. Anyone else before we look at some of the sources? Sandra?
Perhaps it has to do as well with the importance of remembering our foundational story.
Aha. So what Sandra's offering is that maybe it's not just a kind of a halachic thing that if you don't do it, you're karet, but this is not just any holiday. This is a holiday commemorating our birth as a people, and if there's any holiday for which we'd say, yeah, of course you should make it up, it's this one. Purim, not a big deal. Obviously, Tori didn't know from Purim. But, Sukkot, you can make counter arguments for why any other holidays is not as significant. Maybe this one. Okay, let's look at some of the commentators who are answering several different questions on the material. The first source is Ibn Ezra, Spanish commentator, a grammarian, and a dactycan. He's very, very, very focused on the specific language of each phrase. On the phrase "Vayhi anashim," this is what he says: "Lo yitachen sheyeh machaneh Yisrael gadol v'shelo yamutu sham meitim b'chol yom." It doesn't make any sense that there would be a camp of Israelites that big that would not have people dying every day. That's all he says. I'm asking you, what is he saying? What is he saying, or in what way is he weighing in on what's going on here? Norm, and then Vered.
Always there's going to be somebody who has this problem. Every Pesach, there's going to be somebody who has this problem, who will have been involved with taking care of a dead person, or for some other reason will not be able to participate in Korban Pesach.
Okay, so what Norm is saying is that this is a regular thing. What question do you think that Ibn Ezra is answering?
Why were people missing this holiday?
Okay, Stevie, and then Vered.
He's saying that didn't they purify every single day? And the answer is, even if they purified every single day, someone died that day.
So if you're going to have a ritual that's time-bound, that requires a certain level of ritual purity in order to participate in it, you're putting a stumbling block before the blind, is Ibn Ezra basically saying, because there can never be a Pesach in which everyone's able to participate in it. And because you're allowed to participate in other rituals without being fully pure, there's not the same reason that allows people to do it again. But you can't even conceive of a Pesach where the entire community could observe it because someone must have died that day. Vered?
Just the same idea like Stevie. That when you say anashim, then anashim is plural. So that people, the camp of Israel is big, and the word anashim means many people. So this can happen every day. I mean, at this time, that people will die at the same time. So he's actually, as a Dr. He's looking at the word anashim.
Yes. And I think he's being what we'd say melamed zchut. He's trying to read very favorably the situation, that it really could be the case that these people were not people who had forgotten and then created a pretense or were lazy. if you imagine with some kind of magical thinking that the ancient Israelites walking through the desert were already living a fully halachic and observant lifestyle, and they were taking care of the people who were dying in their group of family and friends, then it would be the case that there would have to be a group of people who would therefore be ineligible, and therefore God should have almost anticipated. God, it's almost as if Ibn Ezra is saying, God, you responded positively to their request. You should have known from the first place that it would be an imposition on the community to have such an obligatory ritual that's out there that couldn't possibly be observed by everyone simultaneously. Okay, look at Chizkuni, French commentator from Provence. He actually reads it. Not reads it in the opposite direction, but he kind of is answering it from a different angle. On the phrase "Vayhi Anashim," he says "Echad oseh Pesach Sheni v'lo tzibur." It's interesting when he pulls out the word Anashim, because Anashim is plural, right? I don't know if here I'm not sure if what he's commenting on is the singular verb that we talked about before, but what he says is this rule only applies, this leniency only applies to an individual who makes the claim, not the entire community that makes the claim. It can't be that Temple Beth Am says, you know what, Pesach came this year, and wouldn't you know it, all of us were Tamel Nefesh Adam. We're going to do all of Pesach a month late. That doesn't fly. But an individual who makes the claim that he or she was ineligible to perform this mitzvah because they had been performing in another mitzvah, which is to take care of the dead, they can make that claim, but not an entire community. Again, I'm not sure what the hook is on the verse that he's commenting on. Maybe the fact that it's a plural subject, but a singular verb. But look at his next comment on the phrase Asher Hayu Tmeim. He's trying to figure out. He doesn't read it like Ibn Ezra to suggest that there were people dying every single day, and how could it not be the case? He's trying to figure out who had died, or what corpse were they connected to, that was so significant such that even though they knew that Pesach was coming, they couldn't get themselves into a state of ritual purity. Rabbi Yitzchak Omer quotes a source from the Midrash called the Sifri, and he says, Rabbi Yitzchak says, Im nosei arono shel Yosef, if they had been the ones who were carrying the coffin of Joseph with his bones, as they promised to take it out of Egypt, yicholim litaher, they would have been able to purify themselves. There's a commentary on the Chizkuni that goes into the whole math of this. It basically kind of figures out where they were on this particular day, and by tracing what happened to Yosef's coffin, etc., it's basically saying even if they had been the ones performing that mitzvah, they should have had time to go to the mikveh. Let's say they were the ones who were responsible for carrying the coffins of Nadav and Avihu, the sons of Aaron who were killed back in Parshat Shmini. They also should have had the time. So if it was the case that they weren't in the category of people that we might assume were always in contact with a corpse, who might they have been? Ela lemi hayut me'im. Whom were they impure for? Lemeit mitzvah itmu. They were impure for a meit mitzvah. Meit mitzvah literally means the mitzvah of a dead person. What it means is taking responsibility for the burial and proper disposition of an anonymous corpse. I think what the Chizkuni is saying is very different than Ibn Ezra. Ibn Ezra is saying it would be impossible for the entire community to observe Pesach at any given time because someone's always dying. Chizkuni is saying no, it's not that someone's always dying, but there must have been, in the camp of 600,000 people walking through the desert, someone who fell by the wayside, no one claimed, no one knew that person, and a couple of people said, we're going to take it upon us to make sure this person has a proper burial. They were the ones who were in the situation. The significance of the Chizkuni saying that is that Meit Mitzvah is one of the highest classes of mitzvah, right? There's discussions in the Talmud about if you have an opportunity to do this mitzvah or that mitzvah, which one do you do? It's like a hierarchy, and at the top of that hierarchy is Meit Mitzvah. You forego hearing the Megillah for a Meit Mitzvah. You can violate Shabbat for a Meit Mitzvah, right? There's considered to be nothing wholly more significant than being personally responsible to dispose of the remains of someone for whom there's no one to dispose of those remains, okay? So he's once again describing this as a category of people who were worthy to ask that question. Turn it over. so far we've dealt with the question of why there were even people in that category at all. Now we're coming to the question, perhaps, of why it's an important paradigm in Jewish thinking and why Pesach itself. Okay. Anyone ever heard of the collection called the? Oh yeah, Marshall. Can someone give Marshall the microphone? Yeah.
I don't understand a certain word, the first word.
Of what?
Vayhi anashim. That's singular. By you anashim.
Right.
And if you look at the tropes are a conjunctive trope.
Right.
It didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I mentioned that. That I'm not quite sure. It would make sense if they were disjunctive trope, as if the Vayehi were, and it came to pass, right?
Yeah.
And maybe that's what Chizkuni is talking about, focusing on the singularity of the verb, and why he says that only an individual can make this claim, not the community.
There was a case.
There was the case, Vayehi,
And therefore,
like Vayehi acharei advarim ha'ela, right?
Right. Sorry, I didn't catch it when you said it the first time.
All good.
Going back.
Anyone know what the Hayom Yom is? Collection. It's a collection of wisdoms and witticisms for each day of the Hebrew calendar from the Lubavitch tradition. Some of them attributed to Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, who's the founder of Lubavitch. Some attributed to Menachem Mendel Schneerson. But if you're a Lubavitch or Chassid, this is like your daily boost of insight and wisdom. Okay, and it's written in Yiddish. So it's been a long time since I had a Yiddish text on a source sheet. So what does the Hayom Yom say for the 14th of Iyar? The 14th of Iyar being the day on which Pesach Sheni would be observed. This is what it says. Pesach Sheni Inyano is. So the Inyan, the matter of Pesach Sheni is the following. Es is nitte kein farfallen. There's no such thing as failure. Whatever you feel about Hasidic readings of text, try to dive into what's beautiful here, right? He's trying to pull out a macro principle from a micro halakha. It's really a pre-halachic notion, but from a micro ruling of the Holy One about Pesach Sheni. What's the underlying or overarching wisdom going on here? This is teaching us that there's no such thing as a final failure. Farfallen is a great word. Farfallen, you can even see the word failure in the word, right? Farfallen reminds me of far-fetched, which also sounds like it should be Yiddish, but it's not.
Farfallen somehow is strong in it. It's like fallen. It reminds me of the concept of a fallen angel, of really an abject kind of a failure.
Right. According to Lubavitch, you're thinking that you shouldn't even think the concept exists. If you fall or if you fail, you've deluded yourself because there's always an opportunity to get up. Men can alle mal verrichten. You can always fix it. There's no failure for which there's no fixing. Afilu misha yatameh, even if you were a schmutzidik person. And that's what he means when he's quoting the word tameh here. He's not reading it in context. Not saying even if you had come into contact with the chorus, but even if you are a tameh person. Misha ya b'derech rechoka, or you were on a distant road. What he means by this is not travel. You would straight off the derech. This, by the way, is, whatever you think about them, Lubavitch philosophy, right? There's no Jew that isn't ripe for being mekarev, for being brought back into the fold. Unafilu lachem, and even if it was lachem, he's doing something very interesting here. I say he, I'm not sure which he it is. I don't know if it's Shneur Zalman, I don't know where it stems from. Look back in the verse itself. Look at verse 8, 10. Remember I told you about the word lachem that is weird, that it's hard to figure out what it's for? The Torah says, Ki yet tameh lenefesh, if you were tameh lenefesh, o b'derech rechoka lachem. The word lachem is out there waiting to be drashed. What Lubavitch says about it, even if the reason that kept you away was not mitzvah, but it was for your own benefit. It was for you. You were doing something else. It was more convenient. You were taking care of yourself. Even if the reason why you strayed and didn't perform that mitzvah on time is because you were doing something pleasing to yourself, as dos is given b'rtzono, and you intentionally missed it. You intentionally missed Pesach last year, right? This is the part of Lubavitch philosophy that I can get behind, even though I'm not always a fan of their methods. But their approach is, you missed Yom Kippur last year? Good news, it's coming up again. You missed Shabbos last. You didn't light Shabbos candles? In 3 days, you have the chance. You didn't put on tefillin yesterday? I don't care. Put on tefillin today. My father, by the way, who grew up the son of a Reform rabbi, has put on tefillin once in his life. I always say that my personal minhag on Chol HaMoed is that I follow my father's minhag and I don't put on tefillin. He's put on tefillin once in his life. At Ben Gurion Airport right before boarding a flight, he got Lubavitch and he put on. It's the only one, right? And you know, when I'm sometimes exposed to that, I sometimes I get a weird feeling. You know, is that really what Torah is about? Is like, you know, finding the Jew on the street and bringing the Mashiach by wrapping tefillin. But if you break it down, what they believe is it does not matter to me if you have failed in your approach to mitzvah every single day up until today. Today you have an opportunity to fix it. There's something beautiful about that, even though I'm not completely comfortable with the methods. As das is given bertzono, it was in your will. I don't know how to pronounce this. Fundeswegen ken men metaken zayin. I guess fundeswegen means nevertheless, deliberate. Yeah. So you can fix it. There's something sweet about this, right? And what's wonderful is this is not a halachic approach, because the halachic approach is that this is specifically for Pesach. You can't do it for other things. Chassidut says, yeah, okay, there's a halachic Jewish life, and there's a Jewish life way beyond halacha, even though they want people to be more halachic, right? You can come back. The door is always open. However many opportunities you missed to do a mitzvah, there's one coming up right in front of you. Okay. Elsewhere in the text, I didn't bring it. Who said that that the reason why this is significant because this is the story of the people's birth? Was that you? It said that because Pesach is the birth of peoplehood, it was important in a Lubavitch philosophy to say that the birth of the people had built into it the notion of you've never failed so much that you can't succeed again, right? And that's why this came through Pesach and not any other mitzvah, right? Built into the birth story of our people is that a Jew has never failed so much that he or she cannot come back into the door. Okay? I'd like to think we feel that way in our community as well, but we're not as proactive about sharing that message on the street. Okay, and the last source, what time is it? Okay, we're okay.
It's also a good life lesson.
It's a wonderful life lesson, yeah. It's a wonderful life lesson, except that sometimes life is not that way. Sometimes one has failed too much and certain opportunities are no longer there for you. But you certainly want to teach your children that when you fall down, then it gives you an opportunity the next day to stand up, right? Okay, another Hasidic text, Shlomo HaKohen Rabinowitz. What I think he was the first Radomsker Rebbe, either the first or the second, 19th century. And he's asking the question, why Pesach and nothing else? Sorry, not asking why Pesach. He's asking why does this story produce a second chance in this particular narrative? Lo matzinu b'Torah shum mitzvah hakfua b'moed sheyesh la tashlumin b'zman acher. We have not found in the entire Torah any mitzvah that is established at a particular moment, as opposed to tzedakah. You give tzedakah whenever you want to. There's not like you have to give tzedakah on a certain day at a certain time. There's no other mitzvah that has tashlumin. Tashlumin means makeup at another time. Rak bekorban Pesach bilvad. Only when it comes to the Korban Pesach, kav'at Torah zman sheni l'kiyum mitzvah, that the Torah established a second opportunity of the mitzvah. Lama? Why? Lefi shehayu anashim Yisrael shehit amtsu v'hishtadlu l'kayem et mitzvah. According to the Radomsker, why does God say yes? Because they wanted it so badly. Because they were people of the Israelites that endeavored and tried so hard to do the mitzvah. We take them for granted. We take it seriously. Maybe he's like almost connecting to what the Chizkuni said. The only reason that they kept away from Pesach is that they were performing a mitzvah even more important than Pesach, which was the mitzvah. They wanted it and they yearned for it. Shayumit Chananin, they were pleading. Umavakshim, and they were requesting, Lama Nigara, why should we be diminished from doing mitzvah A just because we're doing mitzvah B? They wanted it so badly. And he learns a wide teaching from this. So too the grand redemption of the Jewish people will happen in this way. Im Yisrael yitakshu, if Israel demands it, if we insist it, if we are unwavering, v'yitamtsu belev v'nefesh, if we are passionate and working hard in our heart and our soul, la reshet et eretz moladatam, to inherit the land of our ancestors, of our birth, tavo hayeshua, redemption will come. He's living in 19th century, pre-Zionism, right? He's not living at a time where the land of Israel was back in Jewish hands, and I don't even think he's talking about it from a he wouldn't have understood the concept of the state of Israel, but he's not talking only about living in the land of Israel. He's talking about when will our people who suffered and who have wandered and have been kicked out and are homeless, when will they hit redemption? He gives an answer which is wonderful and impossible: when they want it enough. Right? The problem with that is that people might have said, we certainly wanted enough in the times of the Crusades, and still they slaughtered us, and we wanted enough. Rabbi Nachman wanted it too in the 18th, 19th century, and it still wasn't enough. But it's an aspirational teaching to suggest sometimes when you haven't gotten something important, and you think the reason you haven't gotten it is because someone else has stopped you, maybe it's right to ask yourself, have I endeavored hard enough for that thing that's significant to me? And maybe when all the Jewish people want redemption enough, perhaps then it will come. I'll tell you a story, which is going to sound funny and silly compared to this, but it connects to me. And I've shared the story, I think, in the Rashi class before. So if you're in the class and you've heard it, I apologize for the redundancy. When I was in rabbinical school, and I was in that stage in life where not only did I want to be really, really careful about every particular religious practice, but I wanted to make sure my rabbis knew that I was very careful, right? I'm not necessarily proud of that. It was like the way of showing to your teachers how frum you were. I got to Kabbalat Shabbat at JTS a little bit late, and by the time I got into the room where they were davening, they were already in the middle of Kabbalat Shabbat, and I had missed Mincha. And it was right, the sun was already going down. I wasn't sure, and I was like thinking all the sources that I knew. And I went over to my teacher, Rabbi Frankus, who at the time was like the Talmudist and the halachas par excellence. And if you wanted to show how frum you were, you would show Rabbi Frankus. And I went over to Rabbi Frankus and I said, Rabbi Frankus, sunset with this time, and I walked in this time, and there's a source that says this, and I don't know about Mincha, Yorei Kabbalat Shabbat. And he looked at me like I'm an idiot, and he says to me in his beautiful Polish accent, "If you want to daven Mincha, daven Mincha." I'm going to stop you from davening Mincha. And he's basically saying, stop with the geschraying about what time it is. Do you or do you not want to stand and offer an Amidah to God? If you do, go do it, right? Nothing is stopping you, right? Obviously, if I'd come in 2 hours later and it was pitch black, he wouldn't have given the same answer. But it was a lovely, simple reminder, hey, don't ask stupid questions. And if you're yearning to do a mitzvah, go do it. And don't not do it because you're wondering if it's a minute too late, right? And don't not do it because because you'll be able to make the excuse afterwards that the reason you didn't do it is because something got in your way. So practically, Pesach Sheni to the modern Jew means very little, right? It's a day on which no tachanun is said. So if you're a daily minyan goer, the part of the davening that you don't say when it's a slightly joyful day, you admit. If today had been Pesach Sheni, we wouldn't have said Tzidkatcha, those 3 lines after the Amidah. They're tiny little liturgical reminders, right? When I was in Monroe, there was a member of my shul who had to go on a last-minute urgent business trip. He was a pretty observant guy, and he could not be home for Pesach, and he was in a place where there was no alternative, right? And he felt rotten about it. Like this is someone who in every other year of his life, he's subsequently passed away, he would do a religious Pesach. And so we organized for him on the 14th day of ER at our shul in Monroe a Pesach Sheni. And you don't, as a modern Jew, have that obligation. This was about the Korban, not about a Seder, because the Seder didn't exist yet. But we did like a mini Seder. We didn't say brachas, right? But he had matzah and his other rituals because he knew the rule and he figured he missed it. Now, he didn't miss it because he was taking care of a mitzvah, but if you take the Lubavitch approach, he missed it, and now he has an opportunity to do so. So I hadn't gone deep into Pesach Sheni in a while, and I wanted to share this with you as a reminder both that there's this day on the calendar that used to mean much more than it did, and a reminder that one of the Jewish philosophies in life
is that if you miss something significant for a very, very legitimate reason, or even for less so, what the Holy One wants from you more than anything else is to try again the next time. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.
I feel a lot better about myself.
We'll do Kaddish to Rabbanan, and then we'll go into Mariv. We'll do Birkat Hamazon. I always forget that. Thank you. Joe, you lead Birkat? All right, let's give Joey a mic. Where's the mic?
Oh, yeah.
It finds you, Sandra.
Thanks for reminding me, Joey.
You're welcome. Page 47. Oh, I know it was how loud this mic was.
Yeah, keep it like a few feet away. Yeah, I guess.
That. Shir Hamalot B'Shuv Adonai Et Shivat Zion Hayinu Kecholomim Az Yemale Sechot Pinu Ushonenu Rina Az Yomeru Vagoim Higdil Adonai Lasotim Ele Higdil Adonai Lasotim Anu Hayinu Semechim Shuv Adonai et Shavitenu Ka'afikim ba'negev Azorim bedima Berina yiktoru Halach elech uvacho Nosei meshech hazara Bo yavo verina Nosei alumotab Chaverai Nevarech.
Hishem Amrach Metavi Adolam.
Hishem Amrach Metavi Adolam. Birshut Chaverai Nevarech Alinu Shechalinu Mishalo.
Baruch Eloheinu Shulchan Mishalo Devocha Yinu.
Baruch Eloheinu Shechalinu Mishalo Tevo Chayinu. Baruch Shemo. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam. Hazan et Haolam Kulo Betuvo Bechein Bechesed V'Chamim. Hu notein lechem lechol basar ki le'olam chasdo uvtuvo hagadol tamid l'chasar lanu ve'al yichsar lanu mazon le'olam va'ed ba'avur shemo hagadol ki zanim farnes lakol umetiv lakol umechin mazon L'chol beriotav asher bara Baruch atah Adonai Hazan et hakol. No, Adonai.
We'll continue with Kaddish Rabbanan. Alan will lead us, and then Mariv will be on 281 in the Slim Shalom, 264 in the Lev Shalem, and 200 in the Sim Shalom. But first, Kaddish Rabbanan.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabba. Be'olma divra kirutei ve'amlit malchutei. B'chayechon u'yomechon u'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael. Ba'agala u'bizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabba v'barach le'olam v'lomei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitboar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal l'shemei d'kudusha b'richu. Le'ela mingol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechamata. Da'amiran be'oma v'imru amen. Al Yisrael v'al Rabbanam v'al Talmidehon v'al kol Talmidei Talmidehon v'al kol man de'oskin be'oraita. Di ve'atra hadin v'di b'chol atar ve'atar. Yehi lehon u'lehon shlama rabba china v'chitza v'rachamim v'chayin arichin u'mizona revicha u'forkana min kadam avahon di shmaya v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim tovim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imamav, hu barachamav yaseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Ve'hu ahum yechaper v'lo yashiv, ve'erbal yashiv bo lo yekol hamato, Adonai yoshev b'elchianenu ve'yom korenu. Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach. Baruch Adonai hamvorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch El chai v'kayam tamim l'chalenu le'olam va'ed. Baruch et Adonai amariv aravim. Avat olam Yisrael Ve'avatecha tesir le'olamim. Baruch et Adonai ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Adonai lechem emet. U'malchut ha'ratzon kiblu alehem, Moshe v'nazal lechanu shira, b'simcha rabba v'amruchu laham. Michamoch v'elim Adonai, michamoch anadar v'akodesh, norati lod osef elev. מלכותך ובניך בקיים לפני משה, זה אלי אנו ואמרו. אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר כי פדה את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. כי המלכות שלך מעטים לו בכבוד, כי אין לנו מלך אלא אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני, המלך בכבודו תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד ועל כל מעשיו. יתקדע ויקדש שמי רבה, ועמד דברי כי הוא תמליך מלכותי בחייכון ובימיכון וחייתכו בישראל, בגלה בזמן קריב עמו אמן. יהי שמי ברוך לעולם ולעולם המיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתמם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה שמי קדושה ויראו לאלה מכל ברכתה ושירתה תושבתה ונחמתה דרמן באומה ועמו אמן.
So davening, please continue. We continue with Chatzi Kaddish. It's on 279 Lev Shalem, 682 Sim Shalom, or 292 Slim Shalom.
יתגדל ויגדש והבא, בעלמא דיבה כי הוא דיבה מליך מלכותי בחייכון ובימיכון רחדך בישראל, בגלל בזמן קריב עמו.
Amen. Yehi Shemer Mambarach, Amayah Barach.
יתברך, ישתבח ויתפאר ויתמר ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה שמר קדושה.
ברכו.
לעילא מגו ברכתה ושירתה, תושבתה ונחמתה רמון בעלמא ועמו.
Amen. We're seated but for Vayihinom.
Vayihinom Adonai Eloheinu alenu masedenu konanu alenu masedenu konanehu yasheshetu tzoshay l'nahan. Orachin aspireu bishuati, orachin aspireu vareu bishuati.
Back to 216 if you're in the Lev Shalem, second paragraph. Otherwise, just continue where you were. Kadosh,
Kadosh Yosef Lo Yisrael v'Korazel Zev
Kadosh, Kadosh, nice one.
Kadosh, Kadosh, Natzor B'Lochor Tzvodoho. Vatisa eni echma chai korash kadosh.
Baruch Adonai Mimkomo.
Adonai Mimkomo. Adonai Yimloch le'olam va'ed. Titen emet le'Yaakov chesed l'Avraham asher nishbata l'Avadenu mekedem. ויבטחו בך ידי שמך כי לא עזבת דורשך אדוני. אדוני חפץ למען צדקו יגדיל תורה ויאדיר. יתגדל ויגדש ורבה בעלמא דיבר כי הוא תבמליך מלכותי בחייכון ובימיכון רחדך בישראל בגלל בזמן קריב עמו. אמן. יש ברבה ברח לעולם לעלמיה. יתברך ישתבח ויתפאר ויתמר ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה שמר קדושה. ברכו. לעילא מגו ברכתה ושירתה, תושבתה ונחמתה רמון בעלמא ועמו. אמן. תתגבר צלחו ואחרון דכו ישראל, קדם לרשמיה ועמו. אמן. יהי שלום רב ומן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועמו. אמן. עושה שלום עממה והוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועמו. אמן. עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה בעלמא דיבר קירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון ובימיכון וחיי דכל בית ישראל בגלה בזמן קריב עמו. אמן. יהי שמי רבה וברך לעולם עולמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקדושה. ברכו. לעילא מכל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה רמון בעלמא ועמו. אמן. יהי שלום רב ומן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל Kol Yisrael V'Iru Amen. Oseh Shalom V'Imra, Ruya Aseh Shalom, Aleinu V'Al Kol Yisrael V'Iru Amen.
We'll do Havdalah. Go on our way. Inei el Yeshuati, Eftach velo Echad, Ki oziv ezirad yad, Adonai vayehi li l'Yeshua, Ushavtem ayim besasod, Mimaynei Yeshua, L'Adonai Yeshua, Alamcha v'chatecha selah, Adonai Tzvahot imanu, Miskav lanu, Elohei Yaakov Selah, Adonai Tzvahot, Ashrei Adam Botei Ba, Adonai Oshia, Amelech Yaneinu V'Yom Koreinu, LaYehudim Hayta Orah, V'Simcha V'Sason, Me'ikar Kein Tiyeh Lanu, Kos Yeshuot Esa, U'B'Shem Adonai Ekra, Einanai, 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 Baruch atah l'mochalam borei pri agafen, Baruch atah l'mochalam borei minei b'samim. Baruch atah Adonai l'mochalam borei mi'arei ha'esh. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu l'mochalam avdil min kodesh l'chol min hol l'chol ben Yisrael l'ami min yom ha'shvi l'sheish me'hamaseh. Baruch atah Adonai ha'mavdil ben kodesh l'chol. Amavdil ben kodesh l'chol. Chatoteinu yimcho. Zareinu v'chaspeinu yarbe yarbe kacho v'kachochavim b'layla. Zareinu v'chaspeinu yarbe yarbe kacho v'kachochavim b'layla. Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Atishbi, Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Agil. Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Atishbi, Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Agila. Abim Meheira Yavo Eleinu, Imashia ben David Meheira Yavo Eleinu, Imashia ben David. Shavua Torah and good Vashva Tov to those on Zoom, to Rabbi Judy, to the back racks, to Tybal. Have a good week, everybody.
Shavua Tov, everyone.
Shavua Tov, you too. Are we done? Okay. Alrighty. Alright.
Bye, Tybal.
Hi, how are you?
Okay. Good. Yeah.
My sister-in-law.
I just got off. Yeah. Okay, let me get off too. We're the only ones left.
We have a few calls to make.
Hold on a second, honey.